Good afternoon. It's almost noon on Saturday, August the 22nd, 2026. I just thought I'd post something that occurred yesterday. I was in one of Canada's oldest cities, Kingston, yesterday, visiting my great-granddaughter. That's why I'm chatty great-granny, just so you know. And we were having a wonderful day. We just were exploring Kingston, wonderful touristy city with major history that's been somewhat preserved, even though it's very secularized. And, despite the government's attempts, in a previous uh, video, I talked about Indigenous issues in Canada and how they found out that Sir John A. Macdonald's grave was there on a burial site for the Indigenous population in the Kingston area at the time, and he was more likely, in my opinion, was, and I suspect the truth of the matter was, the Indigenous community of Kingston honored Sir John A. Macdonald. Now, the Trudeau government would have you believe, the Trudeau government, both senior and little baby PMT, would have had you believe that Sir John A. Macdonald was a bane on Canadian society. He wasn't, obviously. He was on our $10 bill until the morons that run the government decided it was too controversial to have him on our $10 bill. I'd like to see that come back. Anyway, it's Limestone City Blues Festival weekend, and it's a wonderful weekend, wonderful touristy weekend. Well worth attending if you happen to be in Kingston. Just go downtown, right down to the waterfront, and experience the beautiful, beautiful weather, the beautiful atmosphere of all of the boats that are coming in from all over the world, well, all over North America at least, to, experience and celebrate the historical origins and this beautiful time. I lived in Kingston several times over the course of my lifetime, and it's always been a wonderful experience. But what's inspiring my need to post today is that they were honoring the Tragically Hip and a great big uh, television projection of their music, and Kingston particularly was very proud of its association with the Tragically Hip. And unfortunately, the lead singer, I don't know an awful lot about the Tragically Hip. I do know some of their songs and was a fan. But it was being played on the big screen. Now, I personally, because I lived in Kingston over different time frames of my personal lifetime, have lots of experience with the Blues Festival. I remember there were times when Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray were performing during the Blues Festival down there. And I remember another time I was living in Kingston. I think Mel Gibson came in one year on a boat and participated in some of the activities. So it's a pretty popular town. But two things that I find significant about Kingston and my association and my understanding of what Kingston's all about is Queen's University and Elon Musk, believe it or not. But Queen's University. When I was younger, I was working with a student from Queen's who was doing journalism at Queen's. So I know that Queen's University trains journalism students. Now, the reason I'm posting today is I was triggered while I was downtown experiencing a wonderful touristy type of day with my great-granddaughter and my husband and my other granddaughter. Not her mother, but her auntie. We were all down there and just drinking in the atmosphere. And CBC had a pavilion set up. And I was overcome with the need to express in volume my disdain for CBC and its broadcasting system and its destruction of the Canadian society that should be, and the disgust I had that it would dare to sully such a beautiful atmosphere in such a historical square with their filth and propaganda. And anyway, as you can see, it's a visceral reaction that I have because I've experienced in every possible level the destruction of the Canadian way of living, thanks to that particular organization that is state-sponsored and has been actively indoctrinating the world of Canada and its society into a belief system and a destruction of humanity, destruction of the woman's right to say no when it came to wanting sex. We were expected to have sex in my generation without being sullied by things like marriage and a commitment to the partner we chose to have sex with. No, that wasn't going to be allowed anymore when I was born in 1960, thanks to the women's liberation movement and the indoctrination of Canadian society into believing that they are not supposed to couple. That's just one of the things Canadians can look to the CBC for indoctrinating and poisoning the mindset of the Canadian culture that existed prior to their indoctrination of participation in the indoctrination and enslavement of the Canadian people into the robots that they've become. People who've born and lived my lifetime are brainwashed and afraid, most of them. Too afraid to speak, too afraid to be called a racist, too afraid to be called a sexist, too afraid to be called a heterosexual even. They're afraid. And as a result, they've had to forfeit their children to indoctrination from the age of as young as grade 3 in the school systems. Indoctrination is what happens in the school systems, even the Catholic school systems in Canada now. I thought, like a fool, that by bringing my children into the Catholic school system, you see, I wasn't always able to enjoy the Catholic school system. I had 3 years, of Catholic education in Alberta, Cold Lake, Alberta. Well, not Cold Lake, it was called Grand Centre, Alberta. Nuns taught me. And they were wonderful. Last week, Torontonian Christians had apparently took to the streets, according to X. They took to the streets. 60,000 of them, there were some estimates. If that's a true statement, I didn't have the time to really watch all I could see on X was a clip from somebody's balcony that there were thousands of Canadians marching in the streets of Toronto. CBC was not reporting that. I dare say CBC won't report anything that has anything to do with Christianity. But the reason I'm so inflamed right now is because it occurred to me that Queen's University is indoctrinating future brainwashers. And that's why CBC is forced. I'm going to pause. I got to take that.